Howdy. Bearded Bristol is back, and I am just a guy who likes to talk and paint. This piece is almost done. We are nearing the last, we'll say 2 sessions of sit-downs. This will be the last one that's on video, though. And gonna work a little bit here on the sun flare that's coming through the leaves, and just start to do some finishing touch type stuff. So I think this is going to be kind of fun. As with most of my videos, we're experimenting with stuff that I have not done before. So it may work and it may not, and you are going to be one of the first to know. So we're going to dive in here and see what happens next. And I've got, we'll call it kind of a wash. And I've got some orange here that I mixed up with pink and yellow, or a fuchsia and yellow. And I'm mixing it with just a little bit of white, and we're just going to brush out very softly from the sun through the leaves here and see how this turns out. I don't want it to be very pronounced, and as it dries it's just going to kind of fade into the background, but those sun streaks should still remain in a very faint capacity, which is what I am after. In the meantime, we'll have a little talk. This is the winter that never ends. I'm not sure where in the world you are or what your climate is like, but ours has been absolutely garbage. And what that means is that my employees are starting to get cagey. And not just the employees, the residents, their co-workers, everybody is just a little bit on edge right now because we just have not seen spring yet. And it started to manifest itself yesterday in some fairly nasty ways, as I had employees that were calling each other out. I had an employee who turned into a tattletale yesterday trying to rat out one of her co-workers. And this situation's a little troubling because the person she was ratting out is one of her very best friends. And the thing she was ratting her out about was not a ratting out type of thing. So it was very concerning to me as the day progressed that I was watching this manifest itself. And it had been kind of going on all week in one form or another, where I noticed people were just not themselves. And there's a couple of things that I think we can do about these situations, because it's again, I don't even know if people know why they're frustrated and upset, or why they're at one another's throats, only that it's happening. And so, I had to sit back last night and kind of reevaluate the entire situation and what to do about this so that I did not have a bigger catastrophe in the days to come. And so what I did was something that I had done before a couple of years ago, and that was fish out my stuffed groundhog. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Bill Murray movie Groundhog Day, but also just the fact that this has been the winter that does not end. I purchased a stuffed groundhog and a pool noodle so that we could exercise some demons and some frustration and just try to work things out of our system in a non-confrontational way. And so each of my employees this morning took a turn at beating up a stuffed groundhog with a pool noodle. And it sounds extraordinarily absurd, and let me tell you, it was. But I have employees that range in age from 41 on up to 63. And I got lots of funny looks when I suggested they grab a pool noodle and beat up on a stuffed groundhog But before it was all done, everybody was laughing, everybody was relaxed, and everybody got to share in an experience, albeit silly, that helped them hopefully realize that one, we're all on the same team, but two, that we all have things that we're dealing with, but that we're all still kind of the same. I also coupled this with a little talk, and we'll dive into some of that too. But just keep that in mind if you're ever looking for a fun experience. Beat up on a stuffed toy with a pool noodle. It's really a non-destructive way to just get things out of your system. It's interesting though, because I have, all of my employees have their own personalities, as each of you have your own personality as well, and not everybody gets along all the time, and everybody does things different, and that's the best way to have a team environment. If you had several employees that were carbon copies of one another, you would excel in certain areas, and other areas would fall way short. I have a fantastic mixture of talent in my pool that covers almost every instance for the environment that we're in. But with that then comes the push and pull of some different personality types. And one of my guys is very much an alpha male, very strong, a little bit arrogant, and believes that he is right way more than he is wrong, whether that's accurate or not. And on the flip side, I have an employee who is very passive, very good at his job, but doesn't deal well with confrontation, actively avoids it. And these two decided that yesterday was the day that they were going to not get along. And that, coupled with the tattletale scenario that I previously talked about, and some instances with others, other situations, other departments, I had to sit down and process all of it. And the best approach I have found yet for dealing with this is understanding my own shortcomings. Where do I fail on a daily basis? And once I've come to grips with that, then it's easier for me to communicate with the others about where they may or may not fall short. And not by pointing out those areas, but by encouraging them to self-reflect. And if you've listened to my videos, you understand that I am a fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. While I don't follow his hierarchy in the strictest possible sense, I still hold fast to the self-articulation being the peak of the pyramid. And with that self-articulation, it's understanding yourself, who you are, what you are, where you are good and where you are not as good. And by understanding where my failings are, and there is a great many, one of them is I tend to be too passive. I oftentimes wait too long to have these types of encounters with others. So it's no surprise that things do boil over from time to time. But I also cannot micromanage my team, into submission, because we do all have different personality traits. And so I encouraged my team this morning via chat. We always start off the day at 8 a.m. with kind of a to-do list. I have two different groups. One meets at 7, one meets at 8. The 7 is usually just very straightforward. This is what has to happen today, where the 8 o'clock is a little bit more conversational. Nevertheless, I gathered them all up this morning, and I just very simply asked them to take some time throughout the course of the day and reflect on themselves. Where are their shortcomings? And not that they have to correct them, just that they have to understand where they exist, and that everybody has shortcomings and nobody is perfect. And once you internalize that, once you truly understand that, it's so much easier to deal with other people, because all of a sudden you can understand why their decisions are not always congruent with your decisions. Everybody's circumstances are different. Everybody arrives at a problem at a different time. And your first responders are going to have a vastly different reaction to a situation than somebody who shows up 5 minutes later. And, it's about understanding the progression of things, but also understanding where you might fail in the same situation or succeed in the same situation. But once those things are brought to light, it's usually much simpler then to be able to work with others and to be able to understand why they make the decisions they make and why you may not like it, but at least you can understand how they got to where they're at. And it was actually, I believe anyway, a very productive conversation. And as I told my one of my co-workers, who's kind of an assistant manager, I said, all I need to do is get them through this week. And that sounds a little bit crazy, but I'm not trying to reinvent the world here. Weather finally is about to break towards spring, but not until Monday. All I really need to do is get them through the rest of the work week. So if I can occupy their minds, if I can get them to think, even for just a few minutes, earnestly about themselves and try to work on that self-actualization, I will have achieved a victory come Monday, because attitudes will be vastly different once the sun is shining, once people can go outside during breaks and things like that. And that's not to say this was a game that I was playing either. It's absolutely not. But, similar to what I just said about micromanaging people, I cannot browbeat others with the notion of self-actualization. It's something that people have to come to on their own terms if and when they are ready. But we all need things to occupy our minds, particularly at work, because work is work for a reason. It's not always fun. And when the tasks are repetitive, it's sometimes less fun, but at least this gives an opportunity, a purposeful opportunity for some self-reflection on how they may have handled a situation differently yesterday and how that would change the overall outcome. Most problems I've seen anywhere, not just in my current workplace, in past workplaces, in schools, etc., oftentimes arise from an expectation that others perform at a higher level than we do. We have an expectation that others need to do X, even though we didn't do X. We may have had a reason for not doing X, but we're not willing to listen to somebody else's reason for not doing the same, but we will try to hold them accountable for it. And that's an unfortunate way of looking at life, but that is oftentimes, like I say, where when you see those problems, when you have personality conflicts between employees or with yourself and others, it's oftentimes because our expectations of them are higher than our expectations for ourselves. We expect others to be patient and understanding with us. In turn, we have to visit that back to them. And it's, again, that's part of that self-exploration. I was a master at deflecting those things. I was very, very good at having excuses for why I didn't perform at a high level, but rarely was I willing to listen to somebody else's reason for not doing the same. And when I finally started to understand that, sometime in my late 20s, early 30s, I discovered my work relationships improved a great deal. I started getting invited to those after-hours parties. Cocktail outings, Friday night clubs, things like that. And it happened very quickly. People saw the change in me and the change in the way I reacted. And it was a lot of it taking responsibility for my own actions. And again, part of that, understanding your faults. What is your shortcoming? Are you not good at organizing things? Are you chronically late? Is your attention to detail lacking at times? My attention to detail is fantastic until I get into a hurry. And then I take some things for granted and don't always finish as strongly as I started. It's much easier then when something goes wrong to say, you know what, yeah, I'm not surprised that happened. I have that problem from time to time. It also then becomes easier to ask others for help when you know where your shortcomings are. I deal in part with a housekeeping team. And these folks are just absolutely top notch at their jobs, but that doesn't mean that they all clean toilets the same way or can scrub down a range as well as one of their coworkers. And so we're heading down that path of encouraging them to identify their own weaknesses so that we can provide either training or assistance so that those things are achieved to the level that our residents expect. And that was also kind of how we closed out the conversation today, was identifying what our purpose was within our jobs. And, the short version is the residents at my employment, they write my doggone paycheck. So we better keep them happy. And, just asking my employees to internally return to that place to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, this is why we're here. I'm not here to make a best friend. I'm not here to get other people in trouble. I'm here to do the best thing I can for the people that live within this facility. And that's kind of where we left it today. And that coupled with the beating of the inanimate stuffed groundhog provided a reset for the team to be able to leave that room with a smile on their face, with some positive thoughts and something to think about throughout their day that hopefully will benefit them down the road. Again, I have a top-notch group of people. I don't deal with a lot of personality conflicts, which is why I found it so troubling yesterday when these things started to surface. If you're paying more attention to the painting than the talk, you'll see that I'm starting to go through and provide just some kind of random highlights in the water, in the waves, just kind of as I think they should be. I'm not following a template on the computer at this point. This is now just getting it to where it feels inviting and warm. But back to the topic at hand. Self-reflection and identifying our own shortcomings. It's not a failure. This is a victory. When you can identify those things within yourself where you could be a better person, do better things, that's a victory, man. Most people go through their entire lives without ever thinking about those things, and furthermore, expecting perfection of others in a world where perfection not only doesn't exist, but where we don't expect the same thing from ourselves. And I think that's probably pretty much where I'm going to leave this. Not only the painting, but also the talk. But hopefully you can see around that sunlit area. Well played. That's my timer. Hopefully you can see around this sunlit area where those highlights have stuck around and added an extra little halo. Also, the wave areas here, Just those little highlights add some additional depth. Similarly, let's just go ahead and cap this all off where it should be. I need a sip of scotch. Sometimes when you ramble for 20 minutes, you get a little dry in the throat. So, identify those weaknesses within yourself before you're hypercritical of others. You will find very quickly that maybe those frustrations you have with others are in part with yourself. But beyond that, those frustrations you have with others are much more easily understood if you know where you are yourself, not performing up to the bar that you have set. I'm going to pretty much keep it that simple. This piece, for all intents and purposes, is done. There's some other little highlights here and there. I've got to add some cables to the mast of this boat. But it's pretty much done, and it's not a moment too soon. Looking forward to starting on another piece as early as tomorrow night. However, that will likely not have a video, at least not for night number 1. But anyway, want you all to go out there, create something, be creative, do something. But while you're doing it, do a little reflecting. What the heck? What's it going to hurt? Know yourself better than you know others, and that will help you get to know others better as well. You like that circular kind of logic there? It's what it is. Anyway, I'm going to do what I usually do, paint for a little while longer. Hope you found some value in this. Y'all have a great time and take care. Talk to you again soon.